Good afternoon, my name is Hala Tamanova and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's been 10 years of the war and today's day 453 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And I traditionally want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our heroic resistance and our fight for freedom. Our brief schedule of events for today is as follows. At 1 o'clock, joining us online will be Mykola Lukashuk, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast Council, Deputy Chair of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast Defense Council, and we will talk about the attacks on Dnipropetrovsk region. And at 1:30 we will be talking to Vitaly Kim and we will talk about the shellings of Mykolaiv region. Joining us right now is Fedir Venislavskyi, People's Deputy of Ukraine, member of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence, and representative of the President of Ukraine to Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Fedir. Glory to Ukraine. Good afternoon. Glory to the heroes. Mr. Fedir, we will dedicate part of our conversation to the results of G7 summits. What are the results? What do we understand? We know that in the fields of G7 there was a number of bilateral meetings. Can you please tell us in more detail about that? Well, what I can say that it was without exaggeration a historic event when the president on the highest level visited a number of very important events that were going on in the eastern part of the continent, in the Arabic world, the League of Arab States, where the president addressed the members about the situation in Ukraine, and he put the accents over the matters that we are discussed all the time for the Arab world. Why it is important? Because Russian Federation considers Arab world, the Asian world, as a part of alternatives of economic cooperation. And those bilateral meetings that took place in Saudi Arabia and then in Japan, and multilateral meetings and bilateral ones, they became a very big irritator for Russian Federation, for their top-level government officials, because the meetings with the Prime Minister with the Prime Minister of India, meetings with the League of Arab States, and the meetings with the members of G7, as well as the members of other countries who were taking part in the event, it stresses that Ukraine is the subject, full-fledged subject of global international relations, which we could only dream about. But the war has changed the priorities, and even if we check the picture of the summer picture of the G7, where we see President Zelensky among the members of G7, the leaders of the countries of G7, we may start asking whether Ukraine can be considered as the future member of this club of the most powerful states of the world. And we have grounds, I think we have grounds, we have reasons to have these optimistic expectations. And in my opinion, as a member of the Committee for the National Security, Defense and Intelligence, we received very important signals and decisions, another package of military help which will include something that is of great importance for Ukraine from the United States of America, the agreement on the training of Ukrainian pilots for operating of Western fighter jets. So this is the very important summary that we were able to achieve by our delegation and President Zelensky personally. Mr. Fedir, obviously one of the summaries of this G7 meeting was the fact that all the partners assured us of their support, but talking about the probing of Ukrainian capabilities in the sky, what were we able to agree on? We've seen the statement by Josep Borrell that our pilots have already started training. Yes, this is the key point that we should understand today, one of the most important steps, one of the most significant steps. You and your colleagues, you were asking the same question all the time. When is Ukraine going to receive F-16 fighter jets, and are there any other alternatives that we consider? And the fact that our pilots have already started training on those fighter jets, and this training will take about a couple of months, so this process has already started, so we can assess this step that was made within the last couple of days. It means that Ukraine repeats the same path, the same way, the same track that was happening to the tank coalition when our tankers started training on Western tanks, and now they fulfill their duties using those tanks in the front line. So I'm convinced this year Ukraine is about to get the fighter jets. And another important thing, that on the fields of the G7 summit there were bilateral negotiations regarding obtaining of extended radius missiles by Ukraine, along with the air defense systems, which will help us defend our skies more efficiently. And another thing that the president was reiterating, that we are about to get the artillery shells, ammunition, and all together, all those facts, they evidence that the most powerful economists on the world, they emphasize that they're on the side of Ukraine, and they will continue supporting Ukraine. And the summary statement by the leaders of the G7 about the commitment to sovereignty of Ukraine, all the territories that were occupied starting from 2014, and liberation of Ukraine and withdrawal of Russian forces, it all evidences that Ukraine consolidated all the modern developed Western countries around it, and it will help us to end the war as soon as possible and to reconstruct the state during post-war period. Another important question is about our Euro-Atlantic integration. In the eve of the NATO summit, it's very important. Did we achieve any agreements in this regard? Well, I think everybody understands that the level of the meetings that was demonstrated within the last 10 countries, starting from European tour and ending with Arab and Asian world, they require very diligent preparation. And within the framework of all those meetings, the countries that are members of NATO bloc, they, during meetings with them, the questions were brought up regarding future Ukrainians' participation. So I think during the summit in Vilnius, we will receive quite a clear signals that we don't need a lot of additional activities, because Ukraine has already fulfilled all the requirements that are posed in front of the country for their future contingency. So I think that there will be very quick, very expedited procedure of the exception of Ukraine during the post-war period. Thank you for this information, dear colleagues. If you have any questions, please proceed. Alina Strashko, Ukrinform. Good afternoon, Mr. Fedir. My question is about our internal policy and the question of payment to the servicemen. As we know that there is a working group in the parliament being established, do we have already any solutions worked out in this area? Thank you for this question. Really, on the basis of the Committee for National Security, Defense and Intelligence, there is a group established with the representation of all the political groups of the parliament, which also includes the participants of the members of the law enforcement agencies, and this group has already had a number of meetings, and we have worked out a number of solutions related to fair and proportional payment to the servicemen who fulfill their duties in the rear and who fulfill the duties in the front lines as well. I think that shortly we will have all the chances to be briefed by the members of these working groups, so they tell us in more detail about the solutions they worked out. But upon the results of their work, we have already developed the procedures that will be accepted by both the public and the military as fair and just, and related to the, in view of the input of the servicemen of all the defense forces, in view of their input in our victory, and shortly there will be, I would say, an ultimate meeting of the working group, and upon its result your colleagues will be able to receive very detailed information about the solutions worked out. Another question, please.
Kojima from NHK, Japanese public broadcaster. Two questions, if I may, regarding the meeting between President Zelensky and Prime Minister Modi. What is the most important results coming out from the meeting? Do you think the fact that President Zelensky met Prime Minister Modi in person made any difference to the results? And second question is about F-16. I guess it takes some time before Ukraine can get F-16. Do you think that the Ukrainian government can start counter-offensive without F-16? Thank you.
Ну, по-перше, дійсно, я вважаю, що зустріч президента
I think that the meeting between President Zelensky and Prime Minister Modi was a historic event, because on one part is the clear demonstration for the ancient world of the position of Japan, who is the regional leader, and after the meeting in Hiroshima, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, he asked the ambassador of Japan for a meeting with their, due to their dissatisfaction in that meeting. So I think that Japan is on the right side of the history, joining all the democratic countries on the world. Meanwhile, China still gravitates to Russia in those issues. So for us, the meeting with the Prime Minister was quite an important aspect. And regarding your second question, our European partners, Eastern European partners who had Soviet specimens of the aircraft in their ranks, they already handed them over to Ukraine. However, F-16 still remains a priority for us, and to neutralize the threat in the air, we have quite an efficient system of air defense which already stopped domination of the enemy in the air and helped us to oust the enemy air force to the further operational depth. So it's just a matter of time. F-16 will just be the final component of the system of air force and air defense forces, which will be a deterrent factor of enemy intentions to develop any further activities. Thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you for joining our broadcast. I'm reminding you, joining us was Fedir Venislavskyi, the parliamentary member of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence, and our next briefing will be at 1300, and we will talk about shelling of Dnipropetrovsk region. So to stay tuned, work together for our victory, and glory to Ukraine.